allegation, and it is a lie. The New York Times is running a story that I have traveled with a 17-year-old woman, and that is verifiably false. People can look at my travel records and see that that is not the case. What is happening is an extortion of me and my family involving a former Department of Justice official. I really saw this as a deeply troubling challenge for my family on March 16th when people were, talking about a minor and that there were pictures of me with child prostitutes. That's obviously false. There will be no such pictures because no such thing happened. But really on March 16th was when this got going from the extortion standpoint.
Matt Gaetz saw Dr. Disrespect's mistakes and was like, I will not repeat them.
But it tells me that Republicans want to maintain their independence and their autonomy as a separate body from the executive branch. And I would argue that the president-elect, not as it pertains to this case specifically, but at least on the Senate side, has for the most part appeared to be willing to respect that separation as it pertains to many of his nominees. He's allowing them to have that advise and consent authority there. So I think this is a good thing for some Americans who may have wondered, well, will Congress maintain their actual job? They appear to be doing so, and I think we can expect that for the next 4 years.
What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Are there any tangible implications for ethics report to come out? Seems like it's preserving the illusion of independence. I think that the real reason for the ethics committee investigation to come out, even though I want it to come out regardless, is not because they truly think Matt Gaetz is an individual that has committed heinous acts, but for pure resentment. Matt Gaetz did the force the vote. I mean, he was a prominent figure of the Never Kevers. That's it. It's revenge. I think a lot of people in Congress are petty. They have clearly defended and offered coverage and protection to serial pedophiles like Dennis Hastert, historically speaking, the record-breaking, longest-running Speaker of the House in United States Congress history, who also broke other records like being the most prolific pedophile that Congress has ever seen. I think that it's a situation where, Congress doesn't give when someone in their ranks is trying to minors or whatever. That's normal process. They do give a shit, however, when the person who wanted the minors is also disruptive. You know what I mean? That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene played ball.
Good party,
remember this?
At least on Capitol Hill, being fractured in the House. I mean, what does that look like going into the next 4 months?
Oh, we're much more united. I mean, think about that. That was all the Democrats and 8 Republicans. One who's not coming back, and then the other part that you have, and the other part you have is one person who
he just rolled up to him while he was getting interviewed and tried to troll him. This is crazy.
He's got an ethics complaint about sleeping with a 17-year-old. So that's the way they would go. So that's the biggest challenge we have.
Same thing with the guy from North Carolina when he said what happened behind closed and they kicked him out. Yeah, that was Madison Cawthorn. And I think that the Republicans packed him up real quick. I don't know if the Republicans are actually having sex parties or not. I don't know how valid his claims were.
Look at all these people. A lot of them that I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics, guys that, then all of a sudden you get invited to well, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? Yeah. And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Yeah. Or the fact that, there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove, addiction in our country. And then you watch them do, a key bump of cocaine right in front of you.
But they packed him up regardless. Yeah, GOP is also running on a razor-thin majority, and he's already losing votes for Speaker. GOP Rep Thomas Massey says he will not vote for Johnson for Speaker in January. He says he will say someone else's name instead of voting present. Oh, also, there's this drama as well. Any member of the House or Senate who votes for this outrageous spending bill deserves to be voted out in 2 years. Elon Musk having this much power is truly frustrating. Trump is now agreeing with Elon. They're mad about this spending package, and I feel like it's not necessarily the expenditure here that is at play, but I think they're testing the grounds for how much they can bully Congress even before Trump assumes the role. But a brilliant leftist mind told me buying Twitter was a mistake. Yeah. First of all, buying Twitter was a massive failure for Elon Musk. It was. He was forced into buying it. It was financially a massive L. You think he wouldn't have this level of motion if he didn't buy Twitter? What are you, stupid? Yeah, Elon Musk would not have this level of access to Donald Trump if he hadn't bought Twitter. He's a billionaire. At this point, everybody understands that he could have dropped 50 million instead of $46 billion for Twitter, and he still would have been able to run a super PAC for Trump and absolutely gotten the same level of prominence. Trump is going to protect TikTok. He's my goat. He's the president. Too big to rig. Trump 2024, Trump 2028.
This is an expedited timeline for this case, Phil, where the Supreme Court says it will hear arguments over this TikTok ban on January 10th, and that is just 9 days before the federal ban is set to take effect. Now, notably, in this very short order that we got today from the Supreme Court, they say that they're going to be hearing really the merits of this case. They're going to be hearing arguments over whether the ban itself is constitutional. TikTok has, of course, argued that it's not, so they're going to be rehearing what the lower court in D.C. already said the TikTok ban stands. So this is a very quick timeline for a decision like this. We don't know, Phil, at this point, if the Supreme Court would come out with any sort of decision before the ban is set to take effect within just 9 days of that. So as of now, high stakes hearing, no doubt about it, on a Friday, which is also rare for the Supreme Court on January 10th.
The threat to ban TikTok arose because young people were being radicalized by the genocide in Gaza, but TikTok changed its algorithm on that. Young people voted for Trump, and Israel's getting everything it wants, so there's no need to ban TikTok anymore. I think that is like somewhat reductive, but I think more importantly, TikTok played ball. Trump is such a goddamn simpleton that TikTok was like, yeah, we'll give Charlie Kirk 5 million followers. And then Trump was like, well, I like TikTok. It helped me win. TikTok ban reversal, and she's coming to the inauguration, dude. He's China pilled. He's doing it.
Yeah, we're here at the Fed where they are expected to cut interest rates by a quarter of a percentage point. This is going to be likely the third rate cut in a row, which means lower borrowing costs for households and for businesses. But the really important factor here today is what does the Fed say about rate cuts going into next year? The expectation is that they would do 4 more of these interest rate cuts. The rates would gradually come down over next year. And now looks like inflation is a little bit higher than the Federal Reserve and households economists had expected. The Fed might delay some of those rate cuts, which means for households, for businesses, maybe those borrowing costs won't come down as fast. So we're going to be looking really closely at what the Fed's forecast is and what the Fed chair says about the outlook for next year. Also some big wild cards, Phil, when it comes to what policy will look like under President-elect Trump and how that could affect inflation in the economy when you think about policies like taxes and tariffs too.
I think one of the craziest parts about living in a completely permanently busted housing market like Los Angeles, California, is watching the interest rates go up and assuming that under normal market conditions that would lead to housing prices going down because borrowing is less accessible now. It has not lowered the price of houses even a little bit, and the housing prices are still going up. It's crazy. Turns out all these can just sit on their assets and wait it out until it's a seller's market again. And it's not just Los Angeles either. It's all around the country, it seems. I guess the only exception to that rule a little bit is, I don't know, newer markets that grew out of nowhere during the COVID panic moves, like the COVID panic migration that happened, especially when people thought that they could do remote work. Like I assume maybe Austin, but even then it doesn't feel like it. Not only have the housing market prices adjusted, but they're still going up. There's no motion in the right direction. There's only motion in the wrong direction.